Hey everyone. Set up. So if you are joining on the Facebook group or on Instagram, let me know, say hi, give me a wave. It's always cool to see who's watching, who's joining, and yeah, at any point, you're welcome to comment. Let me know if these are things you relate to. Let me know if you have any experiences that you'd like to share or anything you'd like to ask. These are kind of informal discussions, so it's not me like lecturing about something. It's supposed to be sort of informal and relaxed and yeah, open to anyone's input. So I'm just going to wait a minute or two. In the meantime, I'm Sarah, health and career coach for women clinicians. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about this idea of when we are wondering, like, is this career even for me? Like, am I meant to be doing this? And the sort of subtitle that I put was, you know, how can we stop just spinning in indecision when we're not happy at our job or feeling unfulfilled? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'd love to hear any kind of experiences that you're willing to share, anything that you're kind of grappling with, and we can all kind of support each other in this journey. Okay, cool. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to just start off by saying is if you are in this space where you're really kind of spinning and you don't know what to do and you feel like so much of your energy is just going towards like making a decision, and you kind of going back and forth between one decision or the other decision, and whether that's like in your specific job, whether that's in the career in its entirety, even the field maybe. So if you are in that kind of like, oh my gosh, that mental space where you just are drained by this indecision, I just want to offer the idea of just kind of settling in a little bit. So just kind of relaxing into the space, like this is where you are right now. And unless it is an actual kind of harmful situation, there isn't the urgency, as much urgency as it might feel there is to make a decision. So often we feel like we're kind of spinning and we think we're spending so much time considering this decision, but in reality, all we're doing is kind of going in these loops, these thought loops, these indecision loops, and we can be repeating the same kind of thought cycle. And a lot of the time, it's not actually helping us. It's not giving us clarity. It's not helping us make a decision, but we think we're spending so much time and energy making a decision, and we are spending a lot of time and energy, but not actually on making the decision. We're actually just, it's sort of ruminating and like cycling through thoughts, kind of looping is one of the ways that the brain almost like tries to feel that it is looking at the threat, like it's doing something about it. It's not just ignoring it, right? But the way that we do it is often quite unhelpful. So just thinking of this idea of just kind of settling in for now. Just realize, even if it's just for this live, right? Just even if you can just have kind of this thing of, just for this time of this live, I do not need to make a decision, right? And I can kind of settle in a little bit to this space of like, let's look at it a little bit closer. Let's actually get some helpful information about this and not just have this be like this urgent decision. And I totally get how uncomfortable it feels. And sometimes you might be wanting to make a choice because you feel so uncomfortable. Like we want to just get away from this discomfort, right? And that's part of the reason that we don't want to be rushing into something, is because we're often just trying to be anywhere but here, right? Anywhere but the place that makes you feel this way, or that you interpret makes you feel this way, right? It's like anything that would not be the situation where I feel so uncomfortable would be fine, right? And we don't really want that. We want this to be a thought out, intentional decision that we're clear on. So these are some more like benefits of just thinking of settling in, right? Like I said, if we settle in, we can get a bit more clarity on like what is actually going on here. What about it is me? What about it is work, right? When did this start? What is it exactly about? Like, can we get more clarity on what is actually going on? And part of the reason it's so difficult to make a decision is because a lot of that stuff is not very clear to us. So when we settle in, we can get clarity on stuff. We can also work on the stuff that isn't about work, right? So the things that are, let's say, the parts of this situation that are making you feel unhappy or unfulfilled, we know that a lot of it is kind of related to how we think about things or approach things or whatever it is. So we can get clear on like what things are more me things and what things are more work things. And the stuff that's more kind of us things, and I don't mean like it's your fault, I just mean like what aspects of it are more things that you would want to work on anyway, right? Like even if you were to, at the end of the process, if you were still to leave, or if you still went to a different career, same kind of concept, right? In relationships, right? We want to figure out in this relationship now, what is and isn't working? What part of it are things that I need to work on and would be worth working on regardless of what my next decision is, right? So we get to work on stuff. We get to, extend that period of time. We don't just make a new decision and take those things with us, right? We also thrive when we're going towards something. So not just, like I said, kind of running away from where we are, and not just saying like, I don't care where I am, just if it's not here, right? That kind of decision making based on what we don't want is less effective and less fulfilling than if we decide on what we actually do want and we're working towards that, right? We don't want to just be so kind of in some sense negative, or like rejecting everything about where we are now and kind of like just trying to get away from that, and we'll grab onto sort of anything that's not that. We want to make sure that we are clear on like, this is what I want. And even if it's not, even if you don't have your whole journey mapped out, but you know what the next direction is, you can start taking steps in that direction. And we thrive when we're going towards what we want rather than just running away from what we don't want. Other benefits of settling in are also that we get to make it more realistic. It's not just about this fantasy of something else, right? That kind of grass is green on the other side. It's not just about this fantasy world compared to our current reality, but we can actually make this idea of an alternative also more realistic. We get to have the time to try it out and actually see, is that something that we want, right? And it's also less risky. So whether that's financial or just in terms of your own kind of psychological, how much you are willing to risk, right? Settling in and working on the stuff and getting clear on all the stuff, make sure that we don't make risky decisions. And I wanted to give a few kind of questions that you can start reflecting on. So once you've kind of mentally settled in a little bit, right? Like I said, if it's a harmful, really toxic, clearly not good for you environment, then it might be more urgent, right? But if it's more just, I'm so uncomfortable and I just don't want to feel these emotions anymore, that's a bit different, right? So once you have that kind of idea of, let me settle in, let me get some clarity, let me work on stuff that's here, right? Let me try it out a little bit. Let me get realistic. Let me not take risks that I'm going to maybe later regret. And one of the things is like when I call it kind of like the burnout unfulfillment paradox, right? When people are really burnt out and exhausted, it's difficult, firstly, to even know what you want. So to even have clarity on like what you want to be different. And then at the same time, you also, even when you do have clarity, you don't have the energy to really change things at that time. So it kind of builds onto that feeling of feeling unfulfilled when you're really exhausted. And then obviously the being unfulfilled is one of the reasons that we feel so exhausted and so drained, right? We don't feel like it's meaningful. So these can kind of build on each other, and they can become a little bit of a cycle. And so sometimes if we're in that situation, we need to kind of just be taking small steps kind of on both sides of that. Can we find just a little bit more fulfillment? Can we just get a little bit more energy? How can you take small steps so that things get clearer and we know a little bit more about what part of this is me feeling burnt out and exhausted, and what part of it is actually legitimately wanting something different career-wise or job-wise. So once you've kind of settled in a little bit mentally, these are some questions that you can kind of reflect on a little bit. And I've kind of taken different questions from different ideas about career and fulfillment. And some of these might resonate with you more than others, but there are kind of avenues to explore once you've kind of settled in and are willing to kind of be here where you are and actually get some clarity and get clear on what you want for the future. Okay, so let me go into a few of the questions, and you can let me know in the comments if these are things you've either explored and maybe what you found when you explored this. So you can let me know if any of these resonate with you, if it's something that you've explored in the past, and maybe what you found. So one of the questions is it that let's say your next job, or a different job or a different career, is it something that you're really sure of? Like if you are really to kind of connect with yourself, is it something that you know that you want, right? In other words, I know what I want to do, but there are maybe things that I'm scared of about that, right? Or maybe people will think something of me if I had to take that step, or maybe it means something about me as a person, right? Some kind of unwanted identity. Does it mean if I do this career that, for example, I perceive it as not being a helping profession? Maybe I think that that's a selfish decision to make, right? Maybe I think that people will think I'm unreliable or take unnecessary risks because it doesn't seem like a sure thing, this career, right? There can be different identities and criticism and judgment that we maybe are protecting ourselves from, right? Like if you connect with yourself, is it something you know you want, but you're scared of those things, or there's some kind of resistance? Or do you actually feel like you don't actually know what you want? You just feel like, I know that I'm not happy here and fulfilled here, but I don't really know what else it is that I want, right? And that might be more working on, getting clarity on that, whereas the other one might be addressing the resistance and the fear of judgment and all of that, right? So figuring out like, where are you on that scale? And it might be somewhere in between, right? But those are kind of things that you can think about, because sometimes we also just kind of like I was saying earlier, we almost like dissociate. We just know that we're unhappy and fulfilled, and we use that kind of fantasy of a different job or a different career as like, that would be amazing. Like I would have no struggles there. Like I would have no negative emotions. Like everything would be amazing, right? And we just want to realize, when are we using that fantasy as sort of a way to escape the discomfort of where we are? And when are we actually clear that this is not for us, but we are struggling to take the next steps? The next question that you can think about, or reflect on. These are all things that you can kind of journal about. You're welcome to also send me messages about this. I'm always keen to like talk about this and brainstorm with someone. So thinking about not necessarily if a job or a career change, is something that you're considering. Try not to think about, this is from Ali Abdal on YouTube. He says, don't think about just the title, right? So we just pick like the next title that we want. I want to become an XYZ, right? Don't think about the title, but think about what tasks do you want to be doing on a daily basis, right? What do you want more of in your job? Some of the answers that we got on the Facebook group are things like creativity, variety, autonomy, excitement, calm, joy. So if you think about like, what do you want more of? How can you, are there ways that you can design that into the work that you have now, right? And sometimes we almost don't want to change things where we are because we feel like, I need to decide first whether I'm leaving or going, and then I'll work on where I am, right? And like I was saying, there are so many benefits to working on that stuff now, right where you are. And part of it is just learning the skill of things like asking for what you want, or going into negotiation maybe with your boss, for example, right? Or from your side, like designing more autonomy into your work, designing more joy into your work. Like those skills are never going to be lost, even if you had to make a different decision, right? So it's worth doing that anyway. So what do you want more of in your day? What things about work do you enjoy? What feels like you're in flow and you're feeling fulfilled and you feel like time just rushes by or slows down? They talk about being in flow. Sometimes you have the sensation that time is actually going really fast when you're in flow, and sometimes it feels like it kind of pauses. So do you feel like you're in flow? Do you feel fulfilled? What part of your job or career gives you that? And then what parts don't you enjoy? What parts, if I gave you a button to fast forward parts of your job, like which parts would those be, right? And this is all getting clarity on like, what is it exactly that I like? What is it that I don't like? Can I increase the parts that I do enjoy, or increase the aspects that I do enjoy, or design part of what I want more of into the work that I have? And maybe how can I outsource stuff that I don't enjoy, right? If this is more relevant, for example, if you're a business owner, but it can apply if you are an employee as well. Can you outsource? Can you somehow decrease the time that you are doing the things that you don't particularly enjoy, or maybe not even good at? How can you focus on your strengths and have other people either, kind of outsourcing that, or just being willing to have the things that you're not that great at be kind of okay, right? How can we make focus on our strengths and not focus on the other stuff that we anyway don't enjoy and are not that great at? How can you get support maybe on the things that you don't enjoy and that you don't like? So the general idea, like thinking about what parts of my day do I enjoy? What would I want more of? What would I want less of? And how can I actually take steps towards having that, even if it's in the situation I am now and I'm going to make a different decision later? Like designing that where you are is never wasted. The next question is, which version of hard are you willing to have, right? So the idea of choose your hard, right? We, like I said, that kind of fantasy world of the next job or career is that I'm never going to have these uncomfortable feelings, or everything is going to be fine. I'm always going to feel fulfilled, and I'm never going to have tasks that I don't like, or whatever it is. Like we can have this fantasy world, but the reality is we're always going to experience negative emotions. It doesn't matter where we are always going to have negative emotions. We can't run away from negative emotions, and we don't want to. It's not actually what makes us happy, right? So we want to not be running away from negative emotions, but thinking about which difficulties am I actually willing to have? what problems would I want to have rather than the ones I have now, right? Because we're just going to be swapping out these problems for other problems, but maybe they're problems that you like. This is an interesting, or kind of an example to illustrate that. If you are in employment, right, you might say, I really want more autonomy. If you are an entrepreneur, you have lots of autonomy, but the one you have less autonomy but more security, and the other one you have more autonomy and maybe less security, right? That's just an example of the kind of choosing your hard. You might find, I don't really mind about the security thing. I'd much rather have autonomy. Or you might be someone that says, I'd much rather have security and I'm willing to have less autonomy, right? Whatever it is, there's always trade-offs. There's always difficult emotions. There's always problems that you're going to be navigating. We're not trying to run away from that, right? We're just trying to be deliberate about which problems do I want to have? What kind of hard am I willing to have? Someone else posed it as, what kind of questions are you willing to spend your life navigating, right? Because sometimes we have this idea of like this complexity of our work and it's confusing and there's maybe no clarity and I just want to like be sure about everything, but we're never going to be 100% sure about everything. There's always going to be gray, there's always going to be nuance, there's always going to be unsureness. But the question is, what kind of questions are you actually wanting to spend your life figuring out and maybe never getting the answer to, never being sure about these things, but it fascinates you so much that you're willing to always be exploring these questions. So there are a couple of other ideas that we can use to think about whether we want to, be pursuing another job or career. And one of these ideas comes from the, I'm trying to think, the Design Lab, Stanford Design Lab. So this is by Bill Burnett. So they talk about using design principles for your career and for your life, right? So the idea is this. You take 3 different concepts, right? And these are 3 different versions of your career. The first one is what you're doing right now, but the best possible version of that. So this is something that I've found really helpful when I'm working with people, is to take what we're doing now, but not the version that you are not unhappy with. But if you had to stay in your career, how would you design, let's say, for example, we are clinicians. So let's think about a practice that you designed. You decided every single part of that practice, everything about it you designed according to what you would think would make you happy and fulfilled and would be helping people to the extent that you want to be helping people, right? This ideal version of what you're doing now, because we're often comparing the ideal version of a different thing to what we're doing now. And this is an exercise of actually getting to like, what would be the most incredible version of what you're doing now. Sometimes I say it as, if you had to visit a practice and you walked away from that practice going, wow, it is possible. What would you have seen at that practice to have that thought of like, wow, it is possible, right? The idea of some kind of practice that you only ever thought would be, in some fantasy world, right? Like, what is that practice? The second concept that you design around. So these are all just to kind of get information, right? So the first one is what you're doing now, but the ideal version of that. The second one is your plan B, right? If your job, your career, your field had to disappear today, right? What would be your plan B? What is your plan B career, right? The thing that you maybe wouldn't have to, embark on an entire new study thing, degree to get, right? But even if you do, you maybe have a plan for that, whatever it is, but you have this clear thing of like, okay, if I had to make a plan now, and my job, my career just went away. What would I do next? What is your plan B? What is like a pretty clear second option, right? And again, you can think about what would be the ideal version of that. How would I design that to be incredibly fulfilling, incredibly joyful, right? And then the third idea that you can brainstorm on and design around is, what would I do if money and other people's opinions about me didn't matter? Like, what is the wild card thing of like, if there was no risk, if there was no judgment, if there was no concern about money, what would that be, right? And again, all of these are information gathering. You might not decide to go and do that wild card thing, right? But it gives you some information. Often that thing gives us information about like what is missing from where we are, right? What is something that we yearn for, or like feel like that would be so incredibly fulfilling. Maybe you have those concerns that it's risky or people are judging you, but there's something about that that is really appealing. And it can give you so much information about what you maybe are missing where you currently are. So those are the three things you design around: what you're doing now, but the ideal version of it, your plan B, ideal version of that, and what would you do if money and people's judgments and criticisms were not a factor. And those three things can give you some information. Some people then combine those three things into one thing. Some people decide to make a career change from that, right? And some people, like I said, they just might have some information that can inform what you might make a change to now. And then from that design, a very important step is then to prototype that, right? To actually try it out. Because that's one of the things we miss, right? We go from that fantasy to like making a change. And how can you try some of that stuff out, right? If it's a completely different career, how could you try that out for a little bit, or go and talk to someone or a mentor or whatever it is? Depending on what the next step is, you might have different opportunities to actually get some sense of what it's actually like on a day-to-day basis, right? Not the fantasy version, but like what are the day-to-day kind of realities of that thing. And then just a last few ideas that I wanted to mention. Like I said, all of these are just avenues that you can explore. You don't have to explore every single one of these, but one of them might resonate with you more than the other. So these are kind of the last few ideas. One of the things that I've noticed is this idea of helping people, right? We, like I was saying to a friend the other day, like I'm in a helping profession, and she's not in that. She's a marketing coach. And she was saying, you know, she's never, like, she didn't even know the term helping professions, right? She was kind of like, you know, to me, most professions are helping professions. Like, and I started to think about it, and every time I would kind of think about a career, I was like, yes, that helps people in this way, or that helps people in this way. So I think as helping professionals, and we kind of learn that term, like I'm in a helping profession, we almost think of other professions as not being professions that actually help people, which is really not true. So that's something that I see people getting a bit caught up in, is like, it has to be something that helps people. But if you think about it, most of the careers that you would go into would help people. So just having that as something that you might think about. The idea of making money, right? Obviously that's a factor. And there's kind of that idea of diminishing returns, right? That money is something that to a certain extent is really helpful and significantly affects how we experience our life quality of life, right? But at a certain point, it starts to give us diminishing returns, and it might not be as important, right? So maybe there's like a minimum of that, but then beyond that, it may not be what keeps on motivating you. So that's just an idea to think about if money is one of the driving factors of this decision, right? The idea of ikigai, that is, I think it is, you know, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what was the other one? Can't remember. Anyway, there's like 3 different aspects, and basically where that intersects, that is where your kind of purpose is, or what you can offer the world. So thinking of those different aspects. The other concept is by Cal Newport, and his ideas, his book is called, I think, So Good They Can't Ignore You. But the idea is that we don't just follow our passion. He said most of us, if we think of like what we just enjoy doing, it's like, video games or reading or whatever it is. And those are not really careers in and of themselves. And if you think of like a passion, a lot of people, or actually the majority of people, don't have a clear passion. So not just thinking of, oh, follow your passion, right? That's unhelpful advice for most people. But he was saying that you have a sort of minimum of what you enjoy doing. So let's say that's it. As a clinician, right? You have that clinician training as a base. And then you choose an area that you really specialize in. And the idea is you get so good at that you can't be ignored, right? And the point he's making is when we have this level of skill, when we're so good at something, that in and of itself becomes really fulfilling, right? So we're not doing it in something that we completely don't care about. We have as a baseline something that we do care about, and then we're choosing an area to get so good, and we are building our skills, we are niching down, we are really becoming experts on that thing, and that in and of itself can be such a big source of fulfillment and joy. And then the last idea that I'll just talk about is thinking about the kind of lifestyle that you want to live. So if you had to think about the kind of, just everyday life that you'd want to live, I think the minimalists refer to this as solving for Wednesday, right? So just the idea that just a random, like everyday day, like a random Wednesday, what do you want your actual day to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What feeling do you want to get from it? Right? Like often we think about the big moments in our career, the big shifts, or when we save someone's life, whatever it is, right? These big things, but just solving for like your everyday life. What do you want your average day during the week to look like, right? And what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? And how can you design your career, or just get information about maybe which direction you want to take your career based on that lifestyle that you want, that life that you want, how you want your life to look and feel. So those are all of them. I know it's a lot. As I said, just go pick a few that you feel speak to you, and I'd really love to know anything that you reflected on, or some kind of aha moment that you had from this, or even something that you're not sure about, that you just reach out to me and we chat about it and we just brainstorm it a little bit. Send me a DM if this is something that you also want more support on, and you feel like you're in that space where you're just spinning in indecision. You go from one decision to the other, or you just feel like you're so drained, you spend so much mental energy on this, like deliberating what to do. And I will support you in any way I can. I hope that was helpful, and have a great Sunday, guys. Hi, Mickey. Sorry I didn't see you. Bye.